introduce our first speaker for this part of the afternoon. We've got Catherine Mules from New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, and she'll be talking to us about the governance of artificial intelligence. I was very happy to see Catherine at one of our workshops, well, both of our workshops yesterday, actually, for both data governance and equity for data and data-driven technologies. And I thought, this is good. She's obviously doing some research for her presentation tomorrow, so it was very heartening indeed. Not that she needs to do more research. Catherine is New Zealand Trade and Enterprise's Knowledge and Information Specialist. She's passionate about the combined fields of technology and communications, and is currently completing a master's degree in information governance at the University of Auckland, for which she received the top student award for artificial intelligence regulation. And I have to ask you this, but were there many other students studying that course? Sorry.
There was a cohort of about 30, I think, at the start of the 2 years, but there were quite a few dropouts, actually.
Well, I think, and all joking aside, sorry about that, the fact that you're studying it is amazing, and the main thing, it's like the Olympics. If you get to the start line, you've already kind of won, in a way. So, without any more of that, welcome, Catherine. I'm really keen to hear from you.
Thank you. All right. Just to clarify, I've completed that master's now. Thankfully, I'm done with that. So this is what I'm presenting today is a sort of outcome of that work, and as well as combined with my practical experience. So tēnā koutou katoa, welcome everyone. Ko Catherine Mules aho. Thanks all for making it through the day and hanging around for my presentation. I hope you all had a refreshing cup of tea or something. So far today, we've heard from a lot of very smart people with some amazing solutions. I'd like to potentially mix things up a bit by presenting insights from someone who's a little bit less technical, but from a more practical, lived experience viewpoint, and a broader lens on AI governance in the New Zealand public sector. So to introduce myself, I've been working at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise for over a year now, and I've recently completed that Masters of Information Governance. Before that, I come from a background in communications research, and also have technology and communications and marketing. So compared to some of the other sort of more highly technical perspectives you heard from today, I think I'm bringing a more sociological and kind of anthropological lens to what I'll be discussing, and what I focus my master's research on. I want to just do a caveat up front that I can't cover everything today. AI governance is a seriously nebulous and complex topic, and it's rapidly emerging. So what I've covered is just some of the key insights from my research. And then, oopsie, that's gone, skipped ahead. Okay. So I want to open with a question. I want to discuss how we can embed information governance practices into organisational culture. The goal of this presentation is really to discuss the actionable steps that we can take as practitioners. As Maria and others have pointed out this morning, what good looks like depends on context. It depends on the ground level experience of us as individual practitioners. We're the ones who know our field best. This is a little bit out of order, that's okay. So here's an overview of what I'll be discussing with you today, just to bring some structure. First, I'll be introducing my master's research with the University of Auckland. I'll be explaining my methodology, my question, my process. Then I'll be discussing this idea of adaptive governance, and this is an evolution of the traditional information governance term that's changing as a result and directly related to AI. Then I'll be discussing why governance, AI governance in particular, is an organisation-wide concern, and then I'll be digging into some actionable steps for AI governance. Okay, so in my recent master's research, through discussion with a senior practitioner at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, an ethical expert at the University of Auckland, as well as international and other local research, I investigated AI concepts and how they are being implemented and interpreted by governance practitioners. I did this through the methodological lens of 3 levels of social order, which was originated by Turner. These are the macro level, meso level, and micro level. Aligning with these levels provides a holistic view of governance, and it acknowledges that how practitioners can effectively respond to both internal and external challenges, use resources effectively, and achieve strategic goals depends on many levels of experience. So at the macro level, what I've found, at that macro level, this level really represents the overarching jurisdiction for organizational operations, such as national law, international agreement, economic policies. This sort of dictates what organizations can and can't do. At this level, and I don't want to tell anyone here how to suck eggs, I'm sure we're all well aware of this, but there's a lot of legal ambiguity when it comes to artificial intelligence. It's not clear how we're meant to tackle it. We've got our, and there's also an important distinction between hard law and soft law. Hard law is actual legislated frameworks, for example, the Privacy Act, Public Records Act, Official Information Act. These are enforceable by law. Then there's soft law, which is emerging government stance, charters, and sort of indicative documents and principles that are voluntary and don't actually require any enforceability or accountability. So at the moment, there is no specific AI law or policy to regulate AI governance or AI use, more particularly. And even with, so there's a reliance on our current hard law, but even with the hard law, that was created in a context of before AI, and really is not adaptable, and there are many more risks introduced, and is not aligned with the artificial intelligence technology. I'm sure many of you are aware here of the recent statement that was reiterated, I think, in the paper last week from Judith Collins, though I think she originally stated in July, about her commitment or her intention to not regulate, and she mentioned this morning, didn't she, as well, to not regulate AI. So the government's taking a hands-off approach. This is limited macro intervention, and from what's really missing is that top-down guidance on exactly what to do. So ministries or government organizations are left to sort of choose the laws that they think apply most to them, to cherry-pick to a degree, and to self-regulate when it comes to AI. Examples of soft law include the Data Protection and Use Policy, the National AI Framework, and the Algorithm Charter. And the Algorithm Charter is a key one here that I'll be focusing on soon, because that has some 30-odd government signatories, and so it's the most comprehensive set of government recommendations and commitments when it comes to AI. So we can see that as really representative of the government's direction. So that's the macro level. And at the meso level, this is really where the social interaction, the interactions with our citizens, with our taxpayers, engagement with them, it takes place, and the achievement of outcomes for them. What we know about this level is that there is low trust in AI. 2023 research found that 72% of New Zealanders are very worried or extremely worried about AI and the many hidden risks that it could pose. And so government's use of AI at the moment cannot really be seen as reinforcing much trust at all. We need to be careful about how we use it if we want to change that viewpoint regarding AI. And another concern, of course, as a key focus for us in government is social values, social outcomes. We need to consider the implications, the broader implications of using AI, and whether it's reinforcing or perpetuating any of these broader but very felt economic disadvantages or the digital divide, as others have mentioned today. And and all of those aspects, especially at that level, come down to trust. They really, they're indicating how we are perceived and trusted in the social context. Finally, at the micro level is the practitioner worldview and behaviours implementation. This is the most dynamic level of these three levels of social order. It's the most changeable, and it's also where norms of practice are formed. Crucially here, as many of us know, New Zealand has some way to go in terms of data and information governance. We're really not up to anywhere near a standard that we would like to be. We have low governance maturity overall. And so, this really is not a good starting point to start to tackle AI challenges. At the same time, government organisations are increasingly using AI, even though those basic government mechanisms are not clear and not in place. So it's a very challenging environment at that practitioner level that many of us are at. But at the same time, though, it's important to note that AI holds so much potential. We can't overlook that, and there is that pressure to jump on board, to innovate, and I don't think anyone here would want to deny that pressure. And the need for use of AI. So the question is, we can talk all day about the problems we face in the field, but what we're really here to come up with is solutions and proactive, positive approaches to shifting things in our industry. So, as described earlier, the Algorithm Charter is the government's core statement of commitment to how it aspires to use algorithms, and algorithms underpin AI. They've stated that their commitment is to regularly peer reviewing algorithms to assess for unintended consequences and to act on the information in the Algorithm Charter. However, at this point, none of those reviews have actually taken place, and it's unclear which, if any, of those algorithms will undergo peer review and whether any changes have been made. So it seems to have, the Algorithm Charter exists, but in terms of ongoing implementation of it, that seems to be a little bit hazy. I'll just go through very quickly the 6 components in the Algorithm Charter here, just because it is that core set of government commitments. So first, all government agencies, and this is the principal viewpoint, it's not enforceable, but all government agencies are hoped to maintain transparency by clearly explaining how decisions are informed by algorithms, for example, publish details on how they're handled. Second, partnership, and this we should deliver clear, tangible partnership into Te Ao Māori, in line with the Treaty of Waitangi principles. Third, focus on people. We should identify and engage with the public and show proof of impact. Fourth, we should ensure that information we're using is fit for purpose and that we manage any biases with that information. Fifth, privacy, ethics, and human rights. These should be safeguarded. For example, the algorithms should be reviewed for unintended consequences that could arise. And finally, human oversight. This should be retained in algorithmic decision-making, and the role of humans in algorithms should be clearly involved and explained in decision-making. So while the Algorithm Charter is robust, and I think it was developed by the Privacy Commissioner and the I think it was the Chief Digital Officer, based on a previous framework. And it certainly helps, and these principles are very positive and reassuring. This, to me, it seems that there's something missing, and that something really is linking to public sector outcomes. To really show our value as a governance profession, we need to prove that we are adding value to our organisations, and of course we are, in terms of preventing risk and legal compliance and those other aspects. But sometimes it's quite hard to talk about the value that we're adding and to really show that linkage. But ultimately, governance outcomes do feed into, measurable public sector outcomes with quality, explainable, transparent data and information. Government agency missions can be measured and tracked. So, for example, the NEAT diagram with the Ministry of Social Development, that's an example I'd like to talk about here. It involves statistical predictive modelling to identify school leavers who may be at greater risk of long-term unemployment. Now, this has a tangible outcome, it's tangible social benefit in line with the ministry's mission. Now, and thinking about that example, a key point here and an obstacle that certainly at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise and maybe at other organisations have faced is that a lot of the data we work with is sensitive, not only because it needs to be protected, of course, for citizens, but also because it's our strategic IP. It's valuable data that we don't necessarily want out there, in the world, because it's valuable IP that we've built up. And this speaks to a key point here related to this public sector outcomes, theme, that sometimes transparency is not always possible. And in many of these cases, what we should actually shift our focus to is reliability of the AI model. Is it delivering what it is intended to? This is more appropriate for aligning with the social license that we need to build up as government agencies. And ways we can do that include just making those models robust, having clarity, having consistency, and refining as we go. Because at the moment, the governance industry is really not showing its value as much as we should be. So now I'll just skip along because I'm running out of time a bit here. So I want to go back to that original question that I asked. How can we embed AI governance into organisations? And, related to that, how can we get organisational buy-in? The answer is really to focus on all aspects of the micro, meso, and macro experience. In the governance profession, we have it's a holistic question. Many of the questions we face, it's got legal ramifications, it's got social impact ramifications, and of course it's got actual practical ramifications and challenges. These are some of the key areas that I identified in my research that we should focus on going forward. First, adaptive policy design. We should have routine reviews and make sure that roles for staff and managers are clear. We want to avoid risks such as that rubbish in, rubbish out. We want to make sure that we have clarity about our goals and that it is stated across the organisation who is contributing to those goals. Second, risk management. Of course, we need to link our policies to robust risk management practices, and this is becoming more complex with more hidden risks as data is shared more and more through AI and third-party AI and international data flows and all that kind of thing. We need to make sure that we have the bare basics in place and then start to build up those risk management practices. Third, stakeholder engagement and collaboration is more important than ever. Effective AI governance requires cross-organisation collaboration at all stages of the AI life cycle. And we need to align interests. It's really, I think, AI is an opportunity to move away from silos more than ever and really build that cross-department, cross-team interaction about how we work with data and information all across the different stages of the life cycle. Ethical principles, really every government organisation should have these. It should align with your mission, but this is something that will really help build trust with our citizens and stakeholders too. We don't have a national ethics framework at the moment. This could be a direction we go toward as a country, but of course there are complexities in terms of different perceptions of ethics, for example with the Māori population. Then continuous monitoring and feedback. Of course, we must work to build benchmarks, and this will be an ongoing process. It won't stop. There will never be a final point, but we need to build up those benchmarks where we can. Then communications and education will be key. We need to use storytelling. We need to show the value of our work. We need to engage with established teams and start to embed ourselves in those teams. And finally, we don't want to cause more red tape with AI. Of course, that's a key concern. There's a pressure on to innovate, to cut costs wherever we can. So we really want to support AI implementation and testing. We want to use things like pilot projects, and we want to start testing with, we find the low-hanging fruit and those immediate wins that might be possible to then use those as use cases and share with our organisation and be open to adapting to new developments. So I just wanted to go quickly into this. The key denominator here, of course, though, still is leadership. Effective leadership is crucial for establishing clear lines of control and balancing governance with business strategy. It's really hard to cultivate a culture of buy-in without leadership support, a culture of governance, and to get that buy-in. Both top-down matters, of course, building a culture of caring about governance and making sure that that's articulated, but at the same time, governance is a cross-organisation responsibility. All individuals will need to have clear responsibilities. So those are some key opportunities that I've identified, and it sort of speaks to what we spoke about there. And we'll share these slides with you if you're interested. And this also, just wanted to make the point that more and more, I don't think any of us would disagree, that change management is kind of closer and more parallel and joined up with governance than it ever has been before. We need change management to gain traction in the organisation. So this is just something to really look to align as close as you can with. Whoops, what's happening? So that's a practical snapshot of the approach at New Zealand Trade and Enterprise and how we seek to accomplish that. Yeah. Any questions or comments?
Do you want to pick your own questions, or should I put them to you?
I'll pick them, please. Who are the regulators that should be driving those changes? So just looking at the top one, I think it's every agency's responsibility to take charge of their information maturity. Of course, it is difficult because there are other priorities, pressures to cut costs. It's both an agency-level responsibility, but also a government proper responsibility. Of course, our regulation is somewhat lacking. We don't have particularly strong, we've mostly just got quite light fines and so on for breaches. There's a key question about whether those need to be heightened, that's sort of a question mark right now. How do you demonstrate that?
They're on here as well, if you want.
Okay, how to leverage our senior government stakeholders' understanding of our low data governance maturity to send a clear message to all public sector C-suite leaders. This is an interesting one, and I think in my conversations, I think many of us struggle with it in terms of getting governance up there on the priority list. I think that, we need to improve our storytelling capabilities. We need to start with some of those pilot programs and make it easy for other people and also show value for other people. There are reputational risks involved, not only legislative risks, but it's about trust as well. And I bring it back to the theme of this conference, I think really highlighting how, it really helps. Reputation and trust is a key one. Okay.
You want to take
any other?
Who is actually using the algorithm charter? Did you
so that
talk to any agencies and quiz them on their experience of the algorithm charter, see if it's made an impact in what they do?
So the algorithm charter has 30 signatories. There has been a review done, a check-in with those signatories, and actually, interestingly, almost all of them have said, we really agree with this in principle, but in practice, the overhead is just too much. We've got embedded processes, we've got practices that would take a lot of effort and cost to change. And so the sentiment is really that no, people aren't exactly following it yet.
And then there's sort of two questions around transparency and reliability. So, because you mentioned at one point, I think, that transparency might not always be practical or something, and that you could fall back on reliability instead. But with this top question here, how can you actually demonstrate reliability if you don't have transparency as well?
Yeah. Well, you definitely need visibility internally, and I think that is just about to what degree you need to be transparent to the public, and of course you do with some of those personal data sets and so on. But but with other sensitive government data, you don't necessarily need to share that, but you can still show how the AI model itself is being reliable without disclosing that sensitive data. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks very much, Catherine.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. Yeah.